Okay, ladies, a little bit about I-cord before we talk about I-cord on our project. I-cord, lovingly called I-cord, can go by another name, idiot cord, which I'm not horribly tickled by. Normally, it is done on 2, maybe 3, rarely 4 stitches. The reason is because I-cord in its purest form is a little tiny tube of knitting that's made by using the yarn coming out of the last stitch to knit the first stitch. So to do that, I cast on 3 stitches. I'm going to shove it to the other end, or gently push, you could think, to the other end, and with the yarn coming out of the last stitch I cast on, I'm going to knit the first stitch I cast on. That's going to drag the yarn across the back, and as a result produces a little tube, pull that tail down, a little tube of knitting. Now you can't see it in the first row, you have to have a couple of rows. So I slide it to the other end. My needles are sticking into my little mat underneath. What an annoying little behavior. I finished it. I'm going to shove it to the other end. Knit again. Notice that the yarn is always coming off the opposite end. So I knit stitch 1, 2, 3, push it back 1, 2, 3, push it back 1, 2, 3. So double pointed needles are really great for producing standalone I-cord, which makes a great gathering cord, all kinds of things. Now look, it's just a little tube of knitting. The reason we tend to keep it between 2 and 3 stitches is because at 4, 5, 6 like that, it has to travel across so far that it becomes loose and kind of unattractive across the back. However, Meg Swanson did I-cord gloves in which she did several stitches and drug it across, and then she came back and created stitches to create the circle, complete the circle all the way up the back. So here we are again at, is it wrong? Not necessarily, maybe applicable for something else. For an edging, it kind of looks like bias tape to me. That's what it looks like when you apply it. So we can make it freestanding, but in our example, I want to do it attached. So I don't like doing attached I-cord as well with double points. We want to go all the way around the outside of our piece. We want to pick up in the cast on stitches. We're going to pick up in the ridges along the side. We're going to do that all the way across the little join. We do want to stitch here because that was a stitch. It's indicative of a stitch. So we'll pick up in the little ridge right here. We'll pick up in the decrease stitch. And then we're going to come straight over here and pick up in each ridge. Because we've had 23 on each side with a center stitch, we know that we would want to pick up 23 stitches and then 1 in the center stitch all the way along. When we attach our I-cord, this is the border it's going to give us. And while the corner looks like it might be a drama, if we do 1 row of unattached I-cord right there, it just bends and travels right around the corner. So a nice finish to the piece, whether a cloth or much bigger a blanket. I think I'm going to use this to my advantage. I've put all this dark. I think I'm going to I-cord just this little section so that it's got a dark edge on all of the squares. This being my Afghan, not just a sample. So to do that, we're going to have to knit up, and I'm going to do it with my circular needle so I can get all of my stitches onto the needle. Probably your 16-inch, maybe your 24, depending on how big your squares were. I'm going to start a few stitches back from the corner. I don't really like to join anything right on the corner just because it's already strange in that I joined. And then I'm going to make it stranger yet by doing something to it. So I'm going to come back a few stitches from the corner, and I'm going to start knitting up one stitch in each ridge. We've done this before. This is the same behavior. One stitch in each ridge until the bottom where I come to the cast on. This is the cast on edge, and I'm going to pick up half of the cast on edge for each stitch. Now in this corner, this is my bottom ridge, but it's also my cast on edge. So I want to make sure in that corner stitch I don't skip this and go clear over here. I want to do one for the side, the ridge. I split the yarn. One for the side. And then one for each stitch all the way along the bottom. I'm going to do that all the way around my practice piece or your afghan or whatever you're putting the I-cord on. Okay. Now I like to pick up stitches all the way around and then I-cord onto those. You don't have to. You could actually apply I-cord by picking up the stitch and then I-cording onto it. You could do it that way as well. In this case, I wanted to pick up, now I've got to find my yarn, the tail of my yarn. So now I'm going to show you what happens. This just feels funny. All of a sudden, I'm like, what am I doing? Okay, so now we're pretending that I've come around the corner, and now I'm coming back up to the beginning, getting close to the beginning of my round, knitting up my stitches. That one has a stitch in it. To connect this I-cord, oh, I know why this was looking so weird, because I wanted the other end of my knitting needle. Well, no wonder. Gee, mini Christmas. Okay, now I have to find the right yarn. I have a mess. Let's knit up with the other end, and the reason is because I want to knit with the other one. I can't do that if it's in my hand. So now I'm going to knit up stitches, and see here. There's my tail, the beginning of where I started to pick up. To start this, I'm going to do a little 2-stitch I-cord. So I'm going to knit in the front and the back of that first stitch. I'm going to then slip those stitches back to my left-hand needle. That's just like sliding them back on the double point. And now I'm going to knit one stitch and SSK the last I-cord with the next picked up stitch. I'm not going to do that neato, slip them back to the left hand needle. I'm not going to do that neato SSK variation where I slip as to knit and then slip as to purl. I'm not going to do that. When I do that, I twist the bottom stitch and it won't let it be as flexible. And because it's an edging, I don't want it to be rigid and tight. For that same reason, I'm not going to pull this yarn tightly across the back of my little 2-stitch I-cord. If I did that, I could actually make the I-cord too tight for my garter stitch. Oh, look, here's my, I need to put this back. This is my corner. I've just done the last one on the side. Let me put this back so you can see. I just did the last one on the side. It's time to go around the corner. So I'm going to do one unattached row, which means I'm going to knit both of the stitches. No SSK at the end. I'm going to slip it back to the left-hand needle. And now I'm going to start attaching again. So slip is to knit, slip is to knit, knit the two together, slip them back to the left-hand needle, slip is to knit, nope, knit one, sorry, slip, slip, together, back to the left hand needle, knit one, slip, slip, knit them together, back to the left hand needle, knit one, slip, slip, knit them together, back to the left hand needle. This then is our result. My little I-cord, and you'll notice it goes around the corner, nice and tidy, and is traveling along without puckering it up or being unattractive. The back then looks like that. Now, if it was in the darker color, I'll show you the back of the other one, which is on the other end of my, right here. So that's what it looks like on the back. Nice little I-cord border. All right, ladies, enjoy.